Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another video. I hope everyone's having a great day. Before watching the video, please subscribe and like it. Chrisley claims her father has never wanted to reconcile. In an emotional and candid revelation that has stirred deep reactions from fans and followers alike, Savannah Chrisley has opened up about the fractured relationship with her father, Todd Chrisley, claiming he has never truly wanted to reconcile despite the public image of unity. They have often projected speaking in a moment of raw honesty that cut through the carefully curated narrative of their once glittering reality television fame. Savannah did not hold back on the pain, the distance, and the quiet heartbreak of a daughter who has spent years hoping for something that never came. Her words come in a time when the Chrisley family is under more scrutiny than ever. Their legal challenges, media exposure, and the sudden collapse of their lifestyle empire have stripped away the luxury and replaced it with layers of vulnerability and reflection. While cameras once captured their southern charm, comedic banter, and tight-knit bonds, Savannah now offers a far less polished and far more human glimpse into what happens when the emotional cracks can no longer be hidden. In a heartfelt moment that quickly captured headlines, Savannah explained that reconciliation has always been a one-sided hope, a longing she carried quietly while waiting for her father to meet her halfway. "I have always loved him. I have always wanted us to fix what's broken, but the truth is you cannot repair something when only one person is reaching for the glue." Her voice carried the fatigue of someone who has fought the same battle far too long, a quiet battle hidden behind social media smiles and scripted family moments. She reflected on how often she tried to mend their dynamic only to be met with emotional distance or redirection. Her father, she claimed, would rather maintain control than admit to hurt, would rather deflect than delve into honest dialogue, and in the end it left her feeling more like a cast member in a show than a daughter with a real connection. "The hardest part," she said, "is realizing that love alone does not always build a bridge. Sometimes pride and fear burn it down faster than it can be." With bitterness, but with clarity and a maturity born from disappointment. She talked about being a young woman growing up in the spotlight and learning too soon that family dysfunction does not disappear just because a camera crew is present or a fan base is watching. She described her father as someone who thrives in performance, who knows how to command a room, who can make strangers feel like best friends, but who sometimes forgets how to just sit with his daughter and say, "I hear you, I'm sorry." Behind the scenes of their once beloved reality series, there were moments she now describes as deeply isolating moments where she felt emotionally erased or overlooked, where apologies were never given and wounds were never acknowledged. Instead, she was expected to keep smiling, to hold the family image together, and to keep quiet about the silence that grew between her and her father like a wall too high to scale. This public admission is not just a confession. It is a turning point. Savannah made it clear that she is no longer willing to pretend, no longer interested in painting over the cracks with pretty words and photogenic posts. She said she still holds hope for healing, but that hope is now rooted in realism, not fantasy. She is done chasing a relationship that cannot breathe without oxygen, and she is done shrinking herself to make her father more comfortable. For fans of the Chrisley family who have long admired their bond, this news is difficult to digest. The image of a devoted father-daughter duo, built over years of television episodes, Instagram photos, and red carpet appearances, now sits in contrast to a narrative of hurt that many suspected but few ever heard. Confirmed the truth is families are rarely as perfect as they appear under the glow of celebrity, and for Savannah, the mask has become too heavy to wear. Her statements come amid growing tension surrounding Todd Chrisley's ongoing legal issues and the emotional toll it has taken on the entire family. While some have rallied behind him, seeing him as a misunderstood victim of an overreaching system, others have begun to question the dynamics within the Chrisley household, especially as more voices, like Savannah's, begin to emerge with truths that don't align with the show's carefully edited version of reality. Savannah spoke also about how she has changed, how therapy and personal growth have taught her to stop internalizing rejection, how she has learned that healing sometimes means stepping away rather than clinging tighter, how sometimes self-respect means giving someone the space they seem to be asking for even if they never say the words directly. She said she has cried countless tears waiting for a phone call, a text message, or a moment of honesty that never came, and eventually those tears turned into resolve. She shared stories of birthdays spent in silence, of milestones marked without acknowledgement, of emotional labor she carried in hopes that one day her father would see her not as a reflection of his legacy, but as a whole person with her own needs and truths. "It is not that I want to erase him from my life," she explained. "It's that I can't keep erasing myself to stay in his life. And that is a difference I wish he understood." Despite the emotional weight of her words, Savannah ended her message with grace. She said she still loves her father, still hopes one day they can meet in a place of truth and mutual understanding. But until then, she is choosing herself, choosing peace, choosing to walk away from dynamics that no longer serve healing or growth. "I hope he finds what he's looking for," she said. "I really do. But I can't lose myself waiting for that day to come." The public response to Savannah's statements has been overwhelming. Messages of support flooded her social media as fans, strangers, and fellow public figures praised her courage, honesty, and vulnerability. Others expressed sadness, disappointment, and even anger toward Todd for what they perceived as a failure to meet his daughter in her truth. But no matter the reaction, one thing was clear: Savannah's voice had changed the conversation, and the silence that had once surrounded their broken bond was now unmistakably personal shattered. Revelation continues to ripple across media platforms. It forces a larger conversation about family fame and the hidden cost of performing connection for the sake of appearances. It invites reflection on what it means to love someone who may never be ready to truly see you. And it speaks to anyone who has ever hoped for a reconciliation that never arrived. Savannah's words remind us that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is stop pretending and start telling their truth. Chrisley and Todd Chrisley don't have the same public story about their relationship. In a story that continues to capture the attention of longtime followers and casual observers alike, the rift between Todd Chrisley and his daughter Savannah Chrisley has become more pronounced as both continue to speak publicly about their relationship, but with drastically different tones and perspectives. While the family once presented a united and almost flawless front during the height of their reality television success, the cracks beneath that image have now widened into a very visible divide. Savannah has been speaking more openly about the emotional distance that has defined her relationship with her father, hinting that things behind closed doors have long been far from perfect. While she maintains a careful balance of love and restraint, her message is increasingly clear. She does not believe her father has been honest with himself or the public about the state of their relationship, and she is no longer willing to co-sign a narrative that does not match her lived experience. Her words often come with a calm tone and a steady demeanor, but they carry the weight of years of tension, unspoken conflict, and unmet emotional needs. She has made it clear in recent interviews and through social media that the version of their relationship being promoted by her father does not reflect her truth. While Todd often speaks with certainty about how close they remain, Savannah's statements suggest something far more complicated and unresolved. Todd, for his part, has continued to portray the relationship as intact and resilient despite challenges, often referring to family strength, forgiveness, and unconditional love. His public comments lean heavily on the notion of loyalty and the importance of sticking together through difficult times, even invoking religious language and themes of redemption and grace to frame the narrative of a family under pressure but unbroken. But according to Savannah, that is simply not the case. Savannah has stated in clear terms that forgiveness and family unity are ideals she respects, but that they cannot exist without honesty, transparency, and accountability. She has spoken of moments in their past where she felt overlooked, dismissed, and emotionally minimized, and she has questioned how a true bond can be maintained when uncomfortable truths are ignored or rebranded for public consumption. Her disappointment is palpable, but it is not wrapped in hatred. Rather, it is tethered to a hope that still exists, even as the hurt remains. Messaging has sparked widespread speculation among fans and media outlets alike, with some siding with Savannah's vulnerable candor and others defending Todd's insistence on familial unity at all costs. But what remains undeniable is that these two narratives cannot both be entirely true. And the growing dissonance has forced a deeper look into how family stories are shaped, controlled, and sometimes distorted in the spotlight of fame. The Chrisleys became household names by inviting viewers into their lives, blending humor, fashion, family antics, and Southern charm into a highly marketable package. The shows centered around Todd's larger-than-life personality and his hands-on parenting style, which often straddled the line between entertaining and controlling. Viewers loved the closeness, the banter, the affectionate rooting that seemed to define their dynamic. But as Savannah has stepped more into her own voice, she has hinted that much of what was shown to the public masked a more complex and at times painful family reality. Savannah's transformation from reality TV daughter to independent public figure has not come without cost. She has acknowledged the emotional labor it has taken to break away from the performative closeness and begin speaking her truth, even when it contradicts the very brand her family built their empire on. She has made it clear that her intention is not to shame or attack, but to heal, and healing, she says, requires telling the truth, even if it disrupts the narrative others wish to hold onto. Todd, meanwhile, has continued to speak as though nothing fundamental has shifted in their relationship. His comments are often steeped in optimism and resolve, suggesting that the family will weather this storm as they have others before it. But critics and observers have noted that optimism can sometimes serve as denial, and that true resolution requires confronting discomfort, not avoiding it or glossing over it with platitudes. The divergence in their public messaging also raises important questions about generational expectations, emotional awareness, and the tension between image and authenticity. While Todd comes from a mindset where keeping the family unit together, regardless of personal whims, may feel like strength, Savannah represents a newer approach, one that values openness, mental health boundaries, and the idea that love without truth is not sustainable. As the divide becomes more visible, fans are left trying to make sense of two very different versions of the same relationship. Some feel betrayed by the idea that what they watched on television may not have reflected reality. Others express admiration for Savannah's bravery in challenging a legacy that once defined her identity and choosing instead to speak from a place of lived experience rather than loyalty to an idealized family image. For now, there seems to be no public reconciliation on the horizon. Savannah continues to assert her truth with grace but firmness, while Todd continues to emphasize family loyalty and faith over fracture. What remains unclear is whether they will ever meet in the middle, or if this public disagreement will harden into a permanent silence. What is clear, however, is that the Chrisley family story, once defined by glossy moments and reality TV glitz, has entered a new chapter, one marked by truth reckoning and perhaps eventual transformation. Whether that transformation leads to healing or more distance remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the days of a single narrative are over, and in their place are two voices, each telling a story that feels undeniably real to them. Savannah has said repeatedly that she wishes for peace and understanding, not revenge or spectacle. She is not trying to tear down her father, she says, but she cannot build up a version of their relationship that no longer feels authentic to her. And Todd, while still holding firm to his vision of a tight-knit family, has yet to publicly engage with the specific concerns Savannah has raised, leaving many to wonder if he will eventually acknowledge the gap between his story and hers. In the meantime, the public continues to listen as these two voices echo across headlines, podcasts, interviews, and social media, with each statement peeling back another layer of the Chrisley family legacy and reminding us that behind every reality show is a reality that no amount of editing can erase. This is far from over for the Chrisley family and Lindsie. The Chrisley family drama continues to unfold with no sign of resolution in sight, as tension between Lindsie Chrisley and the rest of her famous relatives remains a central and painful storyline. Long estranged from her father, Todd Chrisley, Lindsie has found herself in a complicated position once again, as the family battles not only legal issues but fractured personal relationships that appear far from healed despite the passage of time and numerous public statements aimed at presenting a united front. Though the Chrisleys have long branded themselves as a close and faithful Southern family, cracks in the image have become harder to ignore, and Lindsie has been one of the first and most vocal reminders that not everything behind the scenes matches what fans once saw on screen. Her absence from the show, her legal involvement, and her statements about personal betrayal have all painted a far more turbulent picture than the one crafted by the family's now defunct reality empire. In recent months, Lindsie has tried to take a more measured tone, focusing on co-parenting and healing in her own life, but the emotional scars from her history with her father and stepmother appear deep and still rock her decision to keep her distance despite family crises, including the legal convictions of Todd and Lindsie Chrisley, has signaled to many that the rift remains as wide as ever. While some fans hoped that difficult times would pull the family together, instead they seem to have only further solidified long-standing divisions. Todd and other family members have made public comments about forgiveness, redemption, and faith, suggesting that reconciliation is not off the table. But Lindsie has consistently emphasized the importance of boundaries and protecting her own mental health. She has remained firm in her belief that healing cannot come at the cost of silence or pretending, and she has refused to rejoin a family dynamic that once caused her significant emotional distress. The ongoing legal battles have only added fuel to the fire, with conflicting narratives and strained loyalties emerging from every direction. The family's legal troubles, which include convictions and prison sentences, have reshaped public perception and put added pressure on already frayed bonds. Lindsie's involvement as a potential witness and her name being publicly entangled in legal documents created another layer of tension and suspicion that has yet to be cleared away. As the family continues to make headlines with appeals, interviews, and public statements, Lindsie's continued absence speaks volumes. She has chosen a different path, one that centers her son, her career, and her personal growth, and it appears she is unwilling to abandon that progress simply to return to a version of family that no longer feels safe or honest to her. For the Chrisleys and for Lindsie, the story is far from over. The emotional damage is still being unpacked. The silence between them remains telling, and the possibility of true reconciliation feels distant at best. With every new chapter, it becomes increasingly clear that this is not just a family feud. It is a legacy of pain that may take years to fully unravel, if it ever does at all. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, America Trends 24, and stay with us.